against each other. This is the Live Clean and Fight Dirty YouTube show with UFC coach John Hackleman and your co-host, Kajukenbo black belt Angelo Ferrer. Um, Before we get started, before we keep going, if you like what you see, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And if you like the conversation we have it every Wednesday, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Share it with your friends. You can even join in with us. Hi, Zen. And we talk to you. That's my job. John talks to you guys, and I watch your comments and make sure that John answers all your questions. So throw them out there. Today's topic is MMA versus boxing. But if you have questions that are outside of this topic, we're more than happy to answer that during our Q&A at the end of every episode in the last 5 minutes. Also, if you're interested in training, you want to come out, you can go to the pit facility in Rio Grande, or if you're somewhere really far from that spot, you can't find a pit facility near you, there is an online dojo program at www.thepit.tv. Did I get that right?
Thepit.tv.
Man, I'm a fucking professional. All right, let's get this started.
Let's
So,
get started.
John,
Let's get.
MMA versus boxing. What's up, man? What is this?
I don't know. I mean, first of all, they start off with these celebrity boxing matches, which are kind of fun. I mean, it's fun to watch. I remember Sylvester Stallone's brother, Frank Stallone, fought. Who did he fight? He fought that the news guy. What was his name? He was shoot, I can't remember his name. He actually fought him and they went at it. I mean, it was a good fight. I'll think of his name. Gilbert, no, Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo Rivera. Okay. Great fight. I mean, watching that fight, it was like because they both had a little bit of experience, and one guy's a television newscaster. One guy is Stallone's brother, and it was a war. It was a great fight, but for the most part, celebrity boxing matches aren't that great. Then all of a sudden, they put in old time fighters versus each other, and it's like, I mean, the name recognition, a huge name versus another huge name. That was great maybe 20 years ago, but it's like watching a beautiful stripper at 25 years old. I mean, it's great to watch her then, but you don't want to watch her when she's 65 or 75. It's just, you just don't want to watch that anymore. So that's kind of a nah. Now putting in different sports, I think that just makes absolutely, I think it's just stupid. I really do. I think if you're a boxer and you want to fight an MMA guy, fight him at MMA. Fight him in MMA rules. Or if you're a boxer, you're a MMA fighter that wants to fight a boxer in boxing rules, then I think that's great. Go ahead and do it. But you see what happens. Unless you fight an old washed up boxer, you're going to lose 90% of the time. But then this Francis Ngannou one, I don't know what to think about that. It was more of an event than a fight. I felt it was a very boring fight. I could have gone either way on the decision, but it just didn't look like it was more of a event than it was a fight. I think maybe that's one thing I don't really like about those as much is it's kind of a circus act more than a real thing. And now when you're in there fighting, yeah, the guys are really, really banging, but it just doesn't make sense to me because I consider it like if you're a sprinter, like Usain Bolt, right? Say you're the best sprinter in the world, right? You're Usain Bolt, won the gold medal, everything. But now you want to be the best, you want to challenge the best football player, then go play football. But the football player runs, he sprints during the game, right? So now have him challenge Usain Bolt. He's going to lose almost every single time. So I don't get what that cross competition is, because boxing is a very small part of MMA. So if a boxer fights a MMA guy, he should, under all, I think anytime a real boxer fights an MMA guy in boxing, he's going to win. If he fights him in MMA, he's going to lose. So this past fight, there was something going on. There was something. If you watch the fight, you know I'm right. Something weird was going on, and nothing against Francis Ngannou. He's a great fighter, but he's a great MMA fighter. But let's look at this. Almost probably 90+% of his MMA is boxing. You know what I mean? So maybe he'll be a better boxer than he would be an MMA fighter. So maybe this is the best thing for him. But I don't like the event. I don't like them because I feel like there's kind of a circus mentality to those type of events.
But I mean, here I brought this up. So like here, I'm gonna pull this up here real quick, and then we're gonna go to a screen share. But I want to say that especially when it comes to MMA,
Mm-hmm.
this is really nothing new here. Let me finish. Oh, there it is. Okay, so this is really nothing new. Like when you look at the past, there's always been fights. This is not a very good example of it because they were pretty much the same size. But here's a okay example of it a little later. Um, not this fight. This one, right? In Japan, back in the day, a lot of the pride fights were like these David versus Goliath fights, a huge guy against a small Japanese guy. So a lot of times the guy wearing the MMA gloves was like a boxer or something, right? Here's another example of another huge guy like against Ferrer, right? So like I don't know if it's so historically speaking, with the catch wrestling background that MMA came from, it seems like not so much boxing, but especially MMA has more of these freak fights. I mean, the UFC doesn't do this anymore, but the first UFC did. That was kind of their thing. Like they were
Well,
showcasing these like kind of carnival acts. So
yeah,
it's
but
all
they were showcasing specific arts against each other. But now it would be like taking a baseball player, right? And then have him fight a sprinter or a runner. I mean, because you're taking someone from that has one aspect of that sport, which is running in baseball or football. Then you take just a sprinter, just a runner, and then have him challenge the football player in just running. I mean, he's going to win 99% of the time. So then why doesn't that sprinter go ahead and challenge him football rules? That's how I see it. If the boxer wants to fight the MMA guy, why don't they fight in MMA rules?
but like
That's my thing.
and I mean like but I mean historically speaking, this isn't the first time it's happened. I mean, when you another good example of this was, let's see if the fight comes up here. Oh, okay, now we're in the right spot. Was Gene LeBell versus Milo Savage, right? He wore his judo gi, and I believe there was like some special rules that they had for the fight. That I forgot what the rules were, but they're like special rules for the fight for it to be kind of boxing versus judo, right? So like it's nothing new. And I remember even during the Conor McGregor versus Mayweather fight, there were some special rules that they put in there they weren't completely MMA, but they weren't completely boxing either. And
There's a hell of a lot more boxing than.
they
So was there punching allowed?
what's that?
Was there punching allowed?
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
punching.
Was there elbows allowed?
No,
No. Was there
not
takedowns allowed?
no,
Were there
not
kicks allowed?
no.
Yeah. Were there tie clinch allowed? No. I mean, it was whatever rules they might have modified, it was a boxing match. And when Judo Gene LaBelle fought that boxer, it was a boxer against a judo guy. So it was two arts. It was judo against boxing. And that's what the early UFC was. Wrestling against jiu-jitsu, kickboxing versus, boxing. It was one art against the other. But putting them all together in MMA would be like a baseball player playing against a sprinter. I mean, because now you're just taking one aspect of MMA, which is boxing, and then putting it against a boxer who only boxes. So I don't think those early UFC fights are anything like what they're doing now. Those were single guys trying to find out who had the best art. Judo Gene LaBelle, it was judo against boxing, and the old the Pride fights, they were some crazy looking guys, but they were the same rules. They were MMA rules, all of them. They were just freakish guys. They're 6, 7 feet tall and shit like that. So they had some craziness going in, but when they got in that ring, it was MMA rules. So I'm just like the cross rule guy. I just think that's kind of I just feel it's lame. I think it's kind of lame. But if people are making money off it, great. I'm not against that at all. I'm just saying as a spectator, I think it's stupid to watch. I really do. And but I think as a coach, if somebsomebody wanted to fight my guy in boxing rules and they were going to offer him a lot of money, of course I'm going to say yes, because it's they're in it for the money. So I don't know. I'm just kind of, I want them. It's just like kind of, to me it's like a circus act. And when you bring in guys like Connor, who had great skills, I don't know if he still does. He had great skills, but he brings up a circus act mentality. I don't mind hyping the fight. Hyping the fight's one thing, but making it like it's a fucking circus act is another. That's how I feel.
But again, historically, MMA came from circus acts. Like that's where the Gracies came up out of, was literally circus acts, carnies. They were they were doing this weird like catch wrestling. The history is really interesting about in Brazil how they would go into towns and they were doing the catch wrestling thing. They'd have a guy in the crowd who was staged to start a fight. When the guy's done, after the Gracies would put on a little promotion in the ring and showcase their Brazilian jiu-jitsu, there'd be a guy waiting in the crowd to challenge him and be like, I'll take him on. And he'd dress up in regular clothes and get everybody all hyped up. He'd purposely lose to get other people in the crowd to challenge him, and he'd take out a few more guys. And then finally they'd have an actual other guy that was planted in the crowd. So this is like nothing really new. I mean, it's maybe it upsets you that it's happening now, but it's not as bad.
Yeah, so
That's your
and as a fan, I wouldn't want to watch that. To me, that's a circus act. I mean, I wouldn't want to watch that. So maybe they've had circus acts in the past, but that doesn't make them any better now. They're still a circus act. So whether it was then or now, I don't want to watch a fucking circus act. I want to watch two skilled athletes go at it. They don't do this with fucking football or baseball. Why do they think they should do it with MMA? I don't. I don't want to watch. I have enough respect for the art to have a great hype, great. I think hyping it is great, marketing is great, but and having great personality like Muhammad Ali or some of the fighters, more recent fighters, but it doesn't make they could once they cross something, right? Once they cross a line, now it's just a fucking circus act, and it degrades our art. Where they're not doing this in football. Why aren't they doing? They always say, "Well, we want to have a union because football has a union. We want to have minimum pay because football or baseball does that." Yeah, you want it to be like these sports. Quit bringing in the fucking circus mentality, and people will take you more seriously.
And
I don't know.
that's kind of what what you're getting at, I want to say after bring up old fighters, but still it's an interesting topic. When George Foreman lost to Ali, um, he kind of brought in that circus act where he fought five men. Remember, they were like all kind of amateur fighters, and he did that to promote himself. So it's not like, again, it's not nothing new to boxing either to try to do something that seems like a circus act. Now, do people
Yeah.
like circus acts? This kind of goes back to the conversation we had last time when I was telling you about how high we were talking about MMA fighter pay, and I asked you about Mighty Mouse Johnson. Johnson, is that right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how you would prefer to watch him fight because he's a very skilled fighter, but his draw isn't that big compared to other
Yeah.
fighters, and with McGregor being one of them. That kind of
Yeah.
the circus act, the public seems to really enjoy circus acts. That's just
Right.
really
But then like that, um, why doesn't football do that? And then everybody's complain. MMA guys always complain that football is held with more respect, and baseball and basketball, they don't do that. They don't bring in guys from the audience, like the Harlem Globetrotters. That's the circus act. So people go to it. They know it's a circus act, but they don't go to real NFL, NBA. They don't go to real NBA basketball. They're not going to see a circus act. They know it. They're going to see the best athletes training, competing against each other. So we can do that. Yeah, they've been doing it, and they do it in boxing and not very often in boxing. When a guy takes on a bunch of fighters like Foreman, that's the exception, not the rule. They don't usually bring in clowns from wherever just to fight really good boxers. They don't usually do that. But baseball, football, and basketball, they don't do that. They want to keep the respect, the highest respect for the highest athletes. When you start bringing in more circus acts, people start losing a little respect. They might like to watch it, right? They might love to watch it. They love pro wrestling, but we're trying to steer away from that, right? I mean, as MMA is trying to steer away from that and make it a little more serious and a little more respectable, like baseball, football, and basketball. Those are the people that the MMA guys are always saying we should get paid more like them, and they're always putting like they're putting examples. Well, maybe that's one reason. I don't know. What are you looking? What are
that.
you looking at?
Yeah, I know you can tell. I found something. So it's just interesting that you say about MMA trying to steer clear from pro wrestling because
Yeah,
I believe recently did the WWE officially merge with the UFC
yeah,
for a $21
exactly.
billion deal. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how
I'm
much.
not saying, yeah, exactly. And then exactly. And then on and then with the other, the next day, people are complaining that they should have higher pay and they should be more respected, right? They have a union. They want a union. They want to be more like baseball and football and basketball. But you're not going to do that by being more like WWE wrestling. So I'm not saying they're not doing it, but it's kind of weird that they're complaining. They're complaining about being treated, like a, not respected like these sports, baseball, football, basketball. But now you know, so they're complaining about it, but then they're bringing in this kind of stuff. I'm not
But
saying there's anything
wait a
wrong with
second.
it.
Wait a second. And I'm like, they're not the ones who merged. That's Dana
They
White.
what?
The fighters aren't the ones who merged with the WWE. That was Dana White's decision. He's the one who made that call. Like that's how the merger ended up happening. It's not like the fighters are pushing to merge with WWE,
No, but
right?
the fighters are taking fights with older guys and with boxers and crazy shit like that,
Yeah.
and then trying to do those crazy throwing stuff at each other and shit like it, making it like a WWE match sometimes at the weigh-ins. So yeah, they're the fighters, and a lot of those guys are the guys that are complaining we want a union, we want to be taken seriously. And then at weigh-ins and shit, they're acting like fucking circus performers.
And didn't and like while I'm pointing fingers, while I'm pointing fingers again, boxing is the one. Like I brought up the UFC WWE merger, but really, box at this moment in time, boxing is the biggest corporate of putting together these circus fights.
Yeah.
Still, you look at the if I look at the UFC as a franchise, okay, yeah, they'll bring in a pro wrestler like Brock Lesnar this once in a while, but Brock Lesnar's not doing pro wrestling when he goes into the to fight. When he goes to
No,
fight for the UFC, he's got it's the UFC.
he's fighting. He's a serious fighter. He's a very talented fighter.
He's doing the
And
fight.
and there's been baseball players that have played football before.
Yeah. So like
Bo Jackson, right?
yeah, and again but this stuff happening like with what was it? What was that? There was that one YouTuber that recently got into another boxing match, and then there was like a bunch of drama because I guess he punched his opponent got mad and punched a ref or something. There was a fight that ensued after the actual boxing match. There was a lot of shit talking beforehand, and then even afterwards, there's even more fighting going afterwards. So again, like not to say, and I think boxing, like going back to the conversations we had in the past, boxing might be more open, not open to it, but more susceptible to it. Because like you said earlier, every boxing promotion is ran separately. So there's no real rules. Every promotion can do whatever the fuck they want, really. Well, with the UFC, since they're unified, you're not going to see circus fights in the UFC. You're going to see more circus fights, if anything. You don't know. You're not going to see circus acts. You're not going to see circus fights in the current UFC. You're not going to see any more of this. Not even that. Not that was like you said though. That was still not a circus act. The idea of pure boxer in UFC 1 fighting a judo guy, you were still fighting under UFC rules. So it wasn't a circus act where they had these weird rules that were like, like
it was a lot more circus-ish than it is now, but it was more like challenges, like because you could wear different. You weren't uniform. I like it when they're uniform. You know what I mean? And that's the way baseball, football, soccer, and basketball are, right? They wear uniforms. It's uniform. Rules are uniform. So I like that. But yeah, UFC doesn't do that. And when they brought in Brock Lesnar, they brought in a very talented fighter, But then when they start doing these outside matches where they pitting different this and this and this, it's a circus act. It's kind of a circus act. So I don't think Nagano versus whoever he just fought. Who did he just fight? He fought Tyson Fury. Yeah, I don't think that was as much of a circus act itself. I find it weird that MMA fighters, he was 90% a boxer anyway, even when he was fighting MMA. So him coming over like that wasn't as circus act-ish, and he might get into boxing now and just be a boxer. He's making more money. Yeah. But it brought up celebrity fights that I remember, and then those kind of then all of a sudden they had the old guys fighting each other coming back, and that was kind of something was circus-ish, and then now this versus this.
Yeah, it was Mike Tyson versus
Jake Paul, right?
No.
Jake Paul, right?
No, it was before that. The two old men fighting was Mike Tyson versus another junior. Not who is it? Oh geez. Roy Jones Jr. That's what it was. It was Roy Jones Jr. versus Mike Tyson a while back.
Oh yeah. So that was circus-ish. Yeah.
And then they even brought celebrities. Yeah. Thank you, Ken. Yes, Roy Jones Jr. So yeah, they brought in some celebrities to do comedy. All right. So we're getting to the last 5 minutes, and we have questions. But I have
when you have you got a question. Okay, but all I want to say is when you have someone like Mike Tyson, one of the best heavyweights ever, boxers, then you have Roy Jones Jr., who is probably one of the best boxers ever, and then put them together when they're old as fuck. It's like watching that 75-year-old woman strip. You just don't want to see it. You don't want to see that. Remember her how she was. Remember them how they were. Anyway, what?
No, no, we actually don't have any.
That's,
We have a how was
we
everyone?
got questions?
No, not really. We just had someone asking how our Halloween was. It was good. But I do have a funny story for you before we wrap up. This has nothing to do with anything we talked
Okay.
about, but I thought it was funny and I wanted to get your reaction. So I got done with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practice, and there's a guy who I've been doing Kajukenbo with after class. We do some stuff or whatever. And we were in the parking lot, and before I got into the car, he's like, "Hey, can you show me real quick Palama number one of our forms?" I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go over it. So we're going over Palama number one in front of my car. It's parked in a paid parking lot. I paid for the parking spot, and I'm right in front of my car doing Palama number one. Well, if we're doing Palama number one, a guy walks up to me. I live in Japan, for those of you who don't know. A guy walks up to me and says, if I could please stop doing that because it's frightening him and everyone else around.
Wow. In
And
Japan?
for the first time in my life, I discovered that Palama number one may be the most terrifying form I know.
Wow. That guy, that's a man, that's a Karen right there. That's a Karen. That guy, that's a scary guy. That's the kind of guy that's a mass shooter right there.
But he was scared. He told me I was
No,
scaring
I
him.
know.
He was
I know,
terrified.
but that's that kind of guy gets so scared over little things that it starts eating him up. So he's gonna go lose his mind and go do something crazy.
He said, "Look at everyone. You're scaring everyone." And we're looking at each other like,
Was he
no one's
serious?
here. Like, yeah, no, I thought he was joking. So my student looked at me like, I told the guy, all right, sounds good. You know, if it's scaring you, I don't want to scare anyone. So don't worry. You know, we're gonna stop. You can carry on your business. And then
If you're no, I would have said if this
once he
is
left,
scaring you,
we only had, and I was telling him because my student wanted to argue with him more. And in Japanese, I just didn't want to deal with it. We had like 5 minutes to wrap this up because his train is coming. And I told him if we argue with this guy, we're gonna waste 5 minutes that
why don't you
we.
just tell him fuck off and keep going?
Yeah, I told him all right, whatever, and then he left. And he was, I guess, he worked at an office next door. His boss probably told him to tell us to stop. But I thought that
All right. I didn't know Japan had Karens.
scared. He was scared. Scared
That's
of
scary. No, you know what though?
scared of kata.
You know why that's scary? That is scary because if there are really people like that, I know there's people like that here in California, but if there's people like that in other continents like Japan, we're going downhill, bro. That's a scary individual.
Think about it. In Japan, the birthplace of kata.
I bet you there's bodies buried of I bet you there's small boys buried around his
Oh my
house.
god.
Yeah.
Oh man. So
Anyway,
so before we go, William John says, didn't Evander Holyfield fight and he could barely move?
yeah, well, who did he fight? He fought,
Jones
was
Jr.?
it like Anderson Silva or something? Or Vic was it Vitor Belfort? Well, who was it?
Who did Holyfield fight? He could barely move.
Yeah,
Oh, Evander Holyfield, old man fight. Yeah, it was Vitor. Yeah, you're right. It was Vitor Belfort. You're right.
and Vitor won, right?
Let's see here. Looks like it.
Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah, MMA legend Vitor Belfort knocked out 58-year-old former heavyweight boxing champion.
Aw, that's sad. I wish they wouldn't do that. I think
So
he's taking
Russian
enough
guy.
punches.
That's so Russian. Yeah, it was Vitor Belfort.
What?
Someone yelled out some Russian guy, the guy he fought.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was embarrassing. The ref stopped it. Well, We want to thank everyone for coming out. Anything you want to say before we go?
Now, live clean, train hard, fight dirty.
There it is. All
Bang.
right, y'all. Every Wednesday, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. See you next